Okay, so I am Anthony Bongiorno, your instructor. This is English 111. Welcome to the second live meeting. I'm glad to see so many of you are here. Um, let's dive right in. So here's our agenda for today's meeting. First of all, I want to briefly discuss where we've been and where we are headed, meaning like what we've already covered in class, 8 weeks in, and what we are going to be doing for the remaining 7 or 8 weeks, so whatever we have left. Then I want to get into an overview of this unit that we've started, the second unit, which is titled Deep Revision. Um, After that, we're going to talk about some updates, and I'm going to give you some important reminders. And then I'm going to end with giving you the opportunity to ask me questions in real time, and I can provide you answers. And I want those questions because not only will they help me help you, but also they will help me help other students who may have the same questions that you have, but maybe didn't ask or not are not able to attend tonight and will watch this video later. Okay. So just looking backward and forward, so seeing where we have been and where we are going. So first of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you guys for showing up today. Thank you guys for your participation in the class, and thank you for all your hard work. I really do appreciate it. I am not going to lie to you. I really wish that we were on campus. I wish that we were having normal classes. Like I've said before, hopefully this is a once in a lifetime experience that will be something that we remember, but hopefully are not living for that much longer or never have to relive. So I understand, especially since you guys, most of you, if not all of you, are brand new college students. I understand that this is especially difficult for you to be doing this whole online thing. And it's difficult for us too. So sincerely from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. So at this point, I should have received everyone's personal narrative. Okay, so the personal narrative was the first unit. It was the first of 3 major papers in the semester. We did a draft. You got feedback on that draft. If you turned it in, then you had a revision due a little over a week ago. I've been going through those revisions and awarding final grades. That paper and the grade that you're getting on the final copy of it or the final revision is worth 20% of your final grade. So that's really important. If you haven't handed me your revision yet, I need it. And I really need it as soon as possible. Not only do I need to give you feedback that you will need to do your deep revision, which is our second unit, but also it's worth 20% of your final grade, and you cannot pass the class without turning it in. So that's the writing program policy. If you hand me everything else and you get good grades on everything else, but you don't hand me one of the 3 major papers, I still cannot give you a passing grade. At best, I can give you an incomplete. So make sure that I get that, please, if you haven't given it to me. If you have, then just stay tuned to your inbox and wait for my comments and your final grade. I've taken a little while to get them back to you, but that's only because, to be honest, I didn't receive them all on time. I received a decent amount of them late, and I was just kind of giving you a grace period of a few days. So within the next few days, you should be getting back your grades with my final comments for Unit 1, the personal narrative. Now, looking forward, we are going to be doing deep revisions of our first papers. So if you have been paying attention to what we've been talking about the last couple weeks in our weekly lessons, I've explained to you that, yes, you've done a revision before of this paper. And this next paper is going to be a deep revision, which, yes, is another type of revision, but I don't want you to think of it as just adding a few paragraphs or brushing up a few sentences of your personal narrative. So I want you to think of the deep revision as this. A deep revision is more of a re-envisioning. So basically what you're doing is you're taking your first paper with guidance from me and from your classmates, and you are totally re-envisioning it. You're basically breaking it down into its pieces and building it back up into something new. Um, and that something new is going to be sometimes an entirely different paper. Other times it'll be 80% new paper, 20% of your old paper. Whatever it turns into, you should know that it is not just another proofreading of your personal narrative, okay? It is truly supposed to be, designed to be an expansion. It's a chemical change. It's something new, right? You're making something new out of something old. So what I want to focus on to explain how you're going to be re-envisioning your paper is these three tenets of purpose, audience, and tone. Because these are the big three things that you're going to be rethinking and re-envisioning in order to write this new paper, your deep revision. So another thing that you need to know, and another thing that's making this paper new, is that you are incorporating research this time around to support your paper's central argument. So you're going to be having a thesis, which is your central argument, and you're going to be supporting that thesis with research as one of your tools, okay? Obviously, the personal narrative was not a research paper. This is not a full research paper in that you will only need 1 to 2 sources, so I wouldn't, panic, but we are incorporating some soft research skills into this paper. So that's just another way in which this is different, okay? So let me go a little bit further. And again, there'll be questions for you. There'll be time for you to ask questions at the end of the period. And if you have a burning question that you need to ask me right now and you don't want to wait, you could type it in the chat and I will address it as soon as I can, all right? Sorry, let's talk about purpose, audience, and tone, starting with purpose. So the purpose of your first paper was to share a personal narrative about your experience with language. And the purpose of your deep revision is going to be much more persuasive. So you're going to make a more direct, pointed, persuasive argument having to do with an issue of your choosing, okay? So the first shift that you're going to see between your personal narrative and this deep revision is a change in purpose, right? Purpose changing from personal expression to persuasive argument, okay? Next, your audience is widening, okay? So rather than being for a casual reader, like your personal narrative was, you're now going to be writing for a more academically and socially aware audience, okay? So that is going to be the type of audience member or reader that you keep in mind when you write this new paper. A socially active, academic, knowledgeable, not just a casual reader who's going to enjoy a personal narrative. This is a little bit more activist-based, I guess I want to say, or socially aware or socially conscious, okay? And then finally, the tone. Because you are now writing persuasively, and because it is now for a new widened audience rather than for a casual reader, your tone is going to be adjusted to fit the new purpose. So this time around, you're going to write in a more formal, argumentative tone, okay? So what that means is you are going to, sorry, one second. Okay. You are going to be writing more of a, I guess I want to say like more of a traditional persuasive paper, which means it's going to be much more formal in style. So you're going to be using some more elevated, more sophisticated language. You're not going to be using as many contractions when you write. You are going to be striking a tone that's more professional, right? So think about like your tone when you're speaking to a friend and telling them a personal story versus if you were asked on a job interview about a personal story, how you would tell that story to your potential boss versus your friend is going to be very different. So I want you to think about it that way. Your personal narrative was more casual. This is going to be more professional. So you're relating sometimes the same stories, but in a more professional, argumentative, formal way. Okay? So it's all about reframing our focus and incorporating the voice or voices of other writers. So that's what we are aiming to do here. So I want you to think of it this way. When you wrote your personal narrative, you wanted your reader to go along with your premise. So you just wanted them to read your story and enjoy it and take your thesis kind of on a surface level, right? And not probe too deeply, not ask too many questions, not engage with it, absolutely, but not be totally bowled over by an argument, right? Now you are turning up the volume a little bit on the persuasive rhetoric. So you're trying to get them to agree with you. So rather than just going along with your premise, now you want them to go along with your premise and say yes to it. So what I mean by that is you want them to agree with your thesis. You want them to find your thesis to be valid, credible, and well articulated. Okay? So it's just, like I said earlier, turning up the volume a little bit on the level of professionalism, the level of formality, the level of argumentation. Okay? The best place where you can see the shift that I'm talking about from the personal to the more persuasive is in our weekly readings. In case you haven't figured it out by now, guys, you have to do those weekly readings. So much of our course is predicated on you completing those weekly readings and keeping up with them. And our readings always, the way I've structured them is they model the type of writing that we are doing in the unit. So for the whole first unit, you guys read all personal narratives. For this next unit, as you saw with the last piece, the Kiba Solomon piece, and the piece from this week, we are looking at pieces that are much more persuasive, a little bit more formal, and are incorporating other voices, incorporating statistics, incorporating persuasive rhetoric alongside personal experience. So I don't want you to think that you're not using your personal experience, because you are. That's why the basis of this is your personal narrative. But what you're doing now is you are making a more pointed, academic, argumentative argument, and you're supporting it with your own experience plus a little research, meaning like the experience of others. And the viewpoints of others, I should say. So this is why we've been looking in our weekly lessons at Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. So we've been looking at the ethos, logos, and pathos, right? So these are tools of persuasion, right? Appeal to character, appeal to logic, appeal to emotion, because we are now writing in a more persuasive mode. So let me explain the research requirement very, very briefly, and then I'll move on, because I don't want to, I don't want to overload you with information before giving you a chance to speak and ask questions. But this is a very, very light research requirement. So I'm going to be asking that you guys incorporate research from 1 to 2 other writers. They should be, let me rephrase that. They can be, and I encourage them to be, from the readings that we've already done. If you want to go outside of the readings you've already done, you are totally allowed to. You can use any reading in the textbook. You paid money for that textbook, you have it, you may as well use it, right? So you can use any of the readings that maybe I didn't assign for you if you'd like, or you can do your own research as long as you get that research article approved by me when we do our outlines, okay? So that's the research requirement. This is not a major research paper. I want you to think of it as just like a tiny shift. So we're shifting slowly. We started with personal narrative. Now we're in kind of like this hybrid area where you're writing argumentatively, but it's still going to be backed by personal experience. And then our final paper is going to be really like writing in an activist mode, where you're really going to be incorporating some more research and some real heavy persuasion, okay? All right. So that's all I have for this unit. The devil is in the details, and the details are coming out with the weekly lessons. I don't want to overwhelm you all at once. So before I move on to letting you guys ask me questions for the last couple minutes, I just want to remind you of a couple of things and give you a couple updates as far as like the way the class runs and expectations and how you can be successful. So first of all, just a reminder of the weekly schedule. I know some of you guys are taking 4 or 5 classes and it's hard to keep up with, especially when you're not going to class and you kind of have to like keep an eye on your own calendar and keep yourselves organized. It's easy to forget deadlines, but please do make it a point to remember that every single Wednesday, since this class started, every Wednesday you get a weekly folder. You have until the following Tuesday evening at 11:59. So you have a full 7 days to do all of the activities, okay? They should not be all saved for the last minute. I know teachers say that all the time. I know you've heard it before. Please do your best to not save it all till the Tuesday evening, because that's when you send me like frantic, frenzied emails, like asking me what you're supposed to do when you really had all week to do it. So please, on the Wednesday, when you get the email from me, I always send you an email saying, week 7 is live, week 8 is live. Look at the activities, look at what you're responsible for doing, budget your time, and budget your time wisely, okay? That brings me to the discussion board and the attendance. Guys, the discussion board counts as your attendance. Some of you have already contacted because you have racked up too many absences. I know it sounds ridiculous to say absences when we're not meeting in person, but we have to track your attendance and your participation and engagement in the class somehow. So in the writing program, we're doing that through the discussion board. If you've missed 4, 5, 6 discussion boards, you probably have already heard from me because you're in serious danger of failing the class, because that counts as 6 or 7 absences, or 5, 6, whatever your number is, absences, and you're only allowed 3, maybe 4, right? So if you've got an email from me saying that you are deficient and you need to make up some of your absences, stay tuned. I'm going to be sending a follow-up email for everybody, allowing you a quick opportunity over the next week to make up some of your absences. You'll see how I'm going to do that. But please keep an eye on that. You have to do the discussion board. And also, your discussion board is a post plus at least 2 responses to 2 classmates. So it's not just your post. So if any of you have been getting 6 out of 10 points every week and you're wondering why is that, it's because you're only making a first post. You're not discussing anything with any of your classmates, so you're not getting full credit. So your initial post is 6 points, and your 2 responses are 2 points each, which gets you to your weekly 10 points. Late assignments, I take them, but you've got to reach out to me, and we've got to figure out a deadline together. I'm not saying I don't take them, because I absolutely do take them, but yeah, please reach out to me and let me know when it's coming in. Okay. Discussion group and office hour. Guys, I feel like such a loser. I am stood up every single Wednesday evening. Wednesday from 6 to 8, I have office hours. And last week I sent out this big invitation to everybody saying for the first hour, I'm going to be changing the format and I'm just going to have it be an open discussion. You can come, you can talk, we'll talk about anything. You can talk to me, talk to your classmates, whatever. And then from 7 to 8, I'll have my official office hour if you have any questions or need any help with work. Nobody showed up. So please, this is just a reminder. I'm here for you. I want to make myself available to you because we're not seeing each other in person. I'm trying to do the best I can. So just remember that's every Wednesday, including tonight from 6 to 8. Okay. And then your deadlines for this next piece, just because I know somebody's going to ask when it's due. It's going to be fully scaffolded. We're going to start with an outline before we even get to the draft, but the draft is going to be due October 27th, and the final draft of this second piece is going to be due November 10th. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to open it up to any questions. Remember, you can always email me. My email is up on the screen. So let me ask you guys and open it up to you. You could click the raise hand button. That would be preferable, or type it in the chat. Or you could just speak, unmute your mic and say, hi, Anthony, I have a question, and I'll take your questions. Okay, I'm looking at the chat. Casey, I'm writing that down now. I will check and I will get back to you. Um, okay, yeah, I'll get back to you. I have your name down and I will check. I don't remember receiving an email, but I'll check. I'll check my email and I'll check Blackboard to see if it's there. Okay. Um, Make sure you're sending me emails from your CSI email addresses. A lot of times, if students email me from their personal email address, it goes to my spam folder. Just FYI. Okay, thank you, Casey. Any other questions? Um, yeah, so Panina asked for the deeper vision. Do you have an example like you did when you first introduced it? Yes. So with the personal narrative, all the readings were kind of like models, and I gave you a student example. For the deeper vision, I will also be giving you another student example. Okay? So I hope that's helpful for you. Thank you for your question, Panina. Anyone else? Juliana, I see your question. So I said earlier, I gave a grace period before giving back grades on that first essay because they were still coming in. So you should, as long as you submit it through Blackboard, you should be good, Juliana. But I will double check, and if it's not there, I will let you know. And if you don't hear anything from me, then you should expect a grade in the next couple days. Okay? Okay, no problem. Any other questions? I got another 3 minutes if you guys want to ask me questions before I start my next session. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys like another minute in case you're typing a question right now. I don't want to cut you off. So I'll just use this last minute to say once again, I really do thank you guys for all your hard work so far this semester. I understand that this is, this is not the ideal way to go through school. So um, I don't love it either. And I want you to know once again that I'm here for you. I want to provide you as much support as I can. I'm trying my best to replicate in-person classes online, which is tough, but I'm trying my best. So thank you again. Week 8 is up. Um, I think you guys will like this week's reading a lot. I think you guys will like this week's activity. The discussion is a little bit more open this week, as you will see. And we're doing some more work with the rhetorical triangle stuff. So we're really getting into like persuasive writing, okay? All right, so I'm gonna end because I already have students for my next session coming into the waiting room. So if you guys want to head out, you can head out. And if you want to stick around and ask me a question, you could stick around. So goodbye, everybody who's heading out. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you. Okay, so all right, so this is English 111, and I'm Anthony Bongiorno, your instructor, as you should know by now, hopefully. Oh, my dog is barking. And somebody just, I think UPS just rang my doorbell. after delivering some boxes. Okay, so here's our agenda for tonight. First, we're going to discuss where we have been and where we are headed, meaning like what we've covered and what we are going to cover in this unit and beyond. After that, we're going to discuss the overarching themes of this unit that we're in right now, Unit 2, Deep Revision. Then I'm going to go over some important reminders and updates with you, just like general reminders and updates. And then I'm going to leave the last few minutes for a Q&A session. Any questions that you may have, you can ask them during that time. So while I go through the information, just try to follow along with me. If you have any burning questions that you need to ask right away, or else you will forget or something, just type them in the chat and I'll address them as I see them. If not, just take note of your question and ask it at the end during the Q&A session, all right? I just kind of want to get through the information, especially since I don't want to keep you guys too long. All right, so first let's start with where we have been and where we're going. So looking backward and forward. So, okay, so I want to start off by thanking you, just like I did in the first session. Thank you very much for all of your hard work this semester so far. Like I said earlier, I understand that this is not the ideal situation for any of us. This is hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime situation. And I know, especially as college freshmen, and I'm assuming that this affected you when you were high school seniors as well, starting back in March, most of you. This isn't the way you envisioned your high school graduation / freshman year of college, right? So I just want to thank you for all that you have done, all that you continue to do. I really do appreciate it. And I wish I was on campus. I wish that we were face-to-face and having regular classes. And I hope that we one day will be able to do so. Probably not this semester, but maybe next semester, one of you will show up in my classes. I do teach 151 as well. And hopefully that'll be on campus. I don't know. We'll see. But I just want to thank you, truly. Okay, so at this point, I should have received everyone's personal narrative. So the personal narrative was the first of your 3 major papers this semester. Not only is this paper worth 20% of your final grade, but you cannot pass the class without turning in all 3 major papers. So you did a draft, most of you got feedback. I gave you some time and some guidance for your revision. I've gotten a lot of the revisions. They will be coming back to you in the next coming days. I decided to give like a couple or a few day grace period because, truth be told, not a lot of them came in. I don't want to say not a lot, but only about half of them came in on time. So I wanted to just kind of give it a few days before I looked at them and started assigning final grades on them. So if you handed them in, which I hope you have, your final grade should be coming in the next few days, and it'll be reflected on Blackboard. If you have not, it's really important that you note what's on the screen. It's worth 20% of your grade, but not only that, if you don't hand it in at all, you cannot pass. So by that I mean, and this is writing program policy. This isn't my policy. This is the policy of the CSI writing program for English 111 and 151. Unless you complete all of the major papers, you cannot receive a passing grade, okay? At the best case scenario, if you don't get an F, you can get an incomplete maybe. So please turn it in if you haven't turned it in yet. It's super important. Even if you're holding on to it because, I don't know, you feel like it needs more work or you think it's gonna get a bad grade or something, please don't hold on to it because even a bad grade is better than a 0, which is essentially what it's going to be if you don't hand it in, and then you won't be able to pass. So please turn that in. All right, so that was the personal narrative. So that was unit 1, and the class is split into 3 units, right? So the next unit that we started last week is called Deep Revision, okay? So it's about revising papers. So like I said, in the weekly lesson, like you might be thinking to yourself, like, okay, I already did a draft of this paper and then I revised it and now I'm gonna have to revise it again. Like, this is ridiculous. How many times am I gonna revise this paper? But I don't want you to think of this next unit as a surface level revision. It's a deep revision. And the reason why it's called a deep revision is because it goes deep. And what you're going to end up with in many circumstances after this revision is an entirely new paper. So here's the deal. A deep revision is not just adding a few paragraphs or brushing up on a few sentences. As the name implies, it goes much deeper than that. I described it as a chemical change. What I mean by that is you're like changing the DNA of the paper. So you're like breaking it down, building it back up, adding some new stuff, and presenting something new. So essentially, what you're going to be getting out of this deep revision is a re-envisioning of your first paper. So it's like the same foundation, the same like little basic nugget that you started with, but adding a lot more and taking it in a totally different direction. So the three things that I want you to remember or focus on as we work over these next several weeks are purpose, audience, and tone. So we're going to be making major shifts in the way we think about this paper's purpose, audience, and tone, as opposed to the first paper's purpose, audience, and tone. Okay, so in addition, the other way that this paper is going to be different and not just going to be a surface level revision is that this time around we are going to be incorporating some light, don't panic, light research to support your paper's central argument, also known as the thesis, right? So when I refer to your paper's thesis, no matter what it is, no matter what type of writing, everything has a thesis. It's the central idea or the central argument, okay, that the rest of the piece is built upon, okay? So let's talk about purpose, audience, and tone, okay? So your purpose, why you're writing, okay? So think of this as also, this is a helpful way to think of it. Purpose, audience, and tone is like the why, the who, and the how, right? So your purpose is why you're writing it, your audience is whom you're writing it for, the tone is how you're writing it, okay? So starting with purpose, the purpose of your first paper was to share a personal narrative about your experience with language. And the purpose of your deep revision is going to be much different. It's going to be a more direct, pointed, persuasive argument. So you are taking your paper and transforming it into something that is much more of an argumentative paper. So we also need to keep in mind who we're writing for. Who are we trying to convince? Who are we trying to persuade? Who are we arguing to? And that's your audience. So your audience is widening. So your first paper was for like the casual reader. I guess in some ways, actually, your audience is not widening so much as it's getting more targeted. So your first paper was written in a kind of like a personal style that can be read and enjoyed by anybody. This time around, you are writing for a more academically and socially aware reader. So you are writing for a knowledgeable, more sophisticated, more academically inclined reader. So that's going to also affect your tone, right? All three of these things go together. Your tone, the how you're going to present your new paper, or like how you're going to present your writerly voice in this paper, will be adjusted to fit this new purpose. So this time around, you're going to write in a more formal tone. It's going to be more formal, more argumentative. So by formal, I'm going to be expecting you to be using more sophisticated vocabulary. I'm going to be expecting you to not be using informal, as much informal language or contractions. We'll go over this more in detail, but basically you're writing what's considered like to be like more of a traditional paper this time around. So you're taking your personal narrative and you're transforming it into something that's a little bit more of like an essay when you think about like school essays. So we're slowly shifting, if you haven't noticed, right? So the way that the course is built is that we're supposed to, like, we start with personal experience, we start with the personal, then we shift to like this hybrid here in this deeper vision phase where we have like an argumentative tone, a little bit more formality, but still personal experience, and the personal experience and knowledge of others, to our final unit, which is going to be writing for social change, where you're really going to be writing really argumentatively and not using much, if any, personal experience at all. Okay. All right. So that's purpose, audience, and tone. Okay. So I want us to reframe our focus. And I want to talk about incorporating the voices of others so that it's not just your voice like it was with the personal narrative. So think of it this way. When you wrote your personal narrative, you wanted your reader to go along with your premise. So you wanted your reader to take the journey with you as you were telling your story, right? Now you want them to go along with your premise and say yes to it. So you want them to say, yes, that was well articulated. Yes, you make a very good point. Yes, your points are valid. Yes, you are a credible writer and you use credible sources, right? So it's not just about going along with your premise or your story, but also like saying, yes, I see the value in your argument, right? To further like expand upon this, I'm going to use an example that I used in the last session. So like think about if you were telling a personal story or a personal narrative to a friend versus if you were to tell that same personal story to a boss on a job interview, right? Let's say your friend is asking you, hey, what's a time when you went through a hardship and how'd you get through it? And then your boss potentially asks you the same thing. Think about the differences in the way you're going to tell your friend that story versus your boss that story. So that's how I want you to think about this first paper versus this second paper, right? So the first paper is more like you're talking to the friend, right? It's more personal, it's more informal. You're just expressing yourself. This time around, you are doing it for a purpose, right? You want to land that job. You want to convince your reader that you are correct in your argument, right? Or at least, even if they don't agree with you, that your argument is sound and that it's not a fallacy. All right, so the readings every single week are good models for the type of writing that we are doing in that unit. So that's the way that it was the class was structured. So if you notice in the whole first unit, all the personal narratives, all the readings were personal narratives, and you were working on a personal narrative about language, and they were all personal narratives about the writer's relationship with language. So I'm going to be doing that in this unit too, and I've already started. So last week we read the Akiba Solomon piece. That was much more argumentative, right? Yet still rooted in personal experience. This week's reading is by Malala Yousafzai, and then there's another video that you're watching that's also persuasive, yet based in personal experience. So these pieces that you're going to be reading and responding to, that's why the readings are just as important as the writing pieces, because they're really models for the type of writing you're supposed to be doing. These readings that you're going to be doing during this unit are all going to be like models for the type of paper you should be writing. Okay, so always look to the readings to see what type of writing you should be aiming or aspiring to emulate. Okay. This is also why, starting last week and this week too, we've been looking at Aristotle's rhetorical triangle, I say ethos, logos, and pathos. Other people say ethos, logos, and pathos, whatever. Either way, they're all tools of persuasion, right? So it's appeal to character, appeal to logic and intellect, and appeal to emotion, okay? So these three ways of grabbing a reader or a listener, an audience in general, and persuading them to say yes to your premise. Let me talk really briefly about the research requirement, and then I have one more slide, and then I'm gonna take questions from you. I don't want to totally inundate you with information. So I'll let up and stop speaking in a minute. Okay. I'm tired of hearing my own voice too. But before I do that, let me talk to you a little bit about the research requirement. This is not a research paper. Okay. You must actually incorporate, I'm just looking for 1 to 2 other sources. And I'm encouraging you to use the essays that we've already read for class. So I'm not even actually asking you to read anything you haven't read already for class. So you can use, excuse me, 1 or 2 of those essays we've already read in class just to offer your reader an additional perspective to yours, okay? When you, as we know, because we've probably done writing like this before, even in high school, when you incorporate and invite other voices and other perspectives into your own, you make your argument and your paper and your academic work more credible. So that's what it's just a baby step. So it's just 1 to 2 sources. So I would encourage you to either use a piece we've read already, or that textbook that you bought, that you spent money on, use that. You can use any reading from that textbook, anything, whether it's one we read, whether it's one that we will read, whether it's one that has not been assigned for the syllabus but is in the book, use it, okay? If you want to go outside the textbook and you want to find another source, that's fine too. I don't really care. When you guys hand me your outline and your preview of your sources, you're going to have to get an approval from me if it's an okay source to use. All right. Okay. So that's everything for the second paper. Again, the details will come in the coming weeks. I'm scaffolding everything for you, just like I did the first time around. I don't want to inundate you, like I said before, with everything all at once. I want to give it to you piece by piece. So that was just a preview of where we're headed. Okay. I'll take questions at the end, but before I get to that, let me talk about a couple of class housekeeping things, some reminders and updates. The weekly schedule. Again, I know you guys are not used to this online school thing. I'm not either. And I know for a lot of you, it's a matter of keeping yourselves organized. But please remember that every Wednesday, your new weekly folder is released and everything is due a full 7 days later, okay, by the following Tuesday at 11:59. So everything's posted Wednesday morning and is due the following Tuesday night, practically Wednesday morning again. So it's a full week. Please, 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 please. I know I'm a teacher and teachers say this all the time, but please, please, please do not wait until Tuesday night to get started on your work. You're really robbing yourself of learning, which is what you're here for, right? You're here to learn and to grow as writers, right? This is a foundational writing class. And it's not all of you, but some of you have noticed there's been some waiting to the end. Please don't wait to the end, okay? And please make sure you remember to get everything in by the deadline. The discussion boards and the attendance. If attendance is an issue for you, you've probably already heard from me. But just going forward, know that I'm going to be sending you guys an opportunity next week to make up some absences. And you might be thinking to yourself, Anthony, how are you counting absences when we're not really in school? Because the discussion boards are your attendance. I don't know if I've made that clear enough. I've tried to make it really clear, but I'm noticing that some people are still not doing the discussion boards every week, not realizing that they're being marked absent every week that they don't do the discussion board. You have to do the discussion board for a grade and for your attendance. So I'm giving you the opportunity to make up for some of your absences. Stay tuned to your inbox. If I've already reached out to you, you know who you are. You'll be getting an opportunity to make up some of those missed classes. The writing program dictates that if you miss too many classes, you get a WU, which means you fail, okay? Or you're unofficially withdrawn from the course, which will turn into a failure eventually if you don't retake it. You'll have to retake it is the bottom line. So please, please do the discussion boards. And remember, the discussion board is supposed to mimic a discussion. So you make your initial post and then you were supposed to respond to at least 2 of your classmates' posts. Some students are only writing their initial post, probably because they're waiting till the very, very end, the last minute to turn them in. And then you're not getting full credit for that because you're not really contributing to the discussion. You're just making the one post, all right? Late assignments, I do take them, especially, I've always taken them, but especially now during the world being upside down, I'm taking late assignments. I just need you to reach out to me. I need there to be communication. You can't go missing. And especially since I'm not seeing you in class, most, if not all of you guys, I don't even know what your faces look like. So if you go missing, it's really hard for me to know where you're at. So please reach out to me and say, hey, I need some time, and we'll work out an extension. Okay, so the discussion group and the office hour, really quickly, every single Wednesday night since the beginning of the semester from 6 to 8, I am available on Zoom for office hours. Very few people have come to office hours. So I sent out an invitation last week saying that I'm rebranding office hour, and the first office hour is going to be an open discussion group. And nobody showed up. So I sat there alone staring at my computer for 2 hours. So just know I'm never going to give it up. I'm always going to try to get you to come talk to each other and talk to me. So every Wednesday, including tonight from 6 to 8 p.m., I'm here. So just join the Zoom if you have any questions, you need any help, or you just want to talk. The first hour is just for talking to me, to your classmates about anything, the class, the assignments, the readings, anything, whatever. So that's every Wednesday. And finally, since I know somebody's going to ask about the deadlines, I am giving you the deadlines for this draft and final paper now. Again, I'm going to scaffold it for you. So you are going to know as the class is proceeding well in advance when these deadlines are coming up. But just so you know, your first official draft of this second paper is going to be due October 22nd, and the final draft of this paper is going to be due November 10th, right? But before we even get there, you guys are going to be giving me like an outline and an idea of what you're writing about, or how you're changing your paper, and a preview of some of your sources. So that's that. So I'm done talking. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to open up the Q&A. So if you have any questions for me, and I'm sure there are some, please either click the raise hand button so I know that you have a question, type it out in the chat, or just unmute yourself and say, hey, I have a question, and I'll address it. So I'll give you a minute. So I know most of you are probably going to type it in the chat. Okay, I'm just going to give it another minute in case there are any questions. Okay, let me look at my chat. I see. Okay. Jeremiah, thank you. I'm glad you liked my explanation. Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that. Anybody else? All right, if you don't have a question, you can head out of the Zoom, get started on week 8. This stuff was posted this morning, and I'll see you guys soon.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
No problem. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Jessica, okay. Thank you.